Martin Luther King.
As we've been telling you all this week, on Monday it was Martin Luther King Day, and today we do have Kambale Msevuli, who's an analyst, and I don't know how to say it in French, but he's the research center on Congo in Kinshasa, right, Kambale?
Yes, Center for Research on the Congo Kinshasa.
Super, Kambale. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to discuss about this week Martin Luther King Day, which is a really special day here in the U.S. and in the world. So I'm just going to go directly to my questions. What aspect of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and leadership do you find most inspiring and relevant for our time today?
Martin Luther King's vision, right, of seeing a free human being, no matter the color of the race, is something that has always inspired me. In today's world, where we see a lot of people who are compromising values, Dr. King showed us the way decades ago. He fought for the freedom of the black man, the dignity of the black man, the liberty of the black man. But he knew a year before he was killed that even if he fight for the liberation of African Americans, he needed to be connected to the struggle of the oppressed. And I'm speaking specifically about Vietnam. His last speech that he made before he died, where he alluded that I can't just fight for the liberation of people in the United States, knowing that bombs are being dropped on children in Vietnam. That position is missing today, where people are uncompromising when it comes to justice. Because justice is not for a selected few. Justice is for all. And that's the principle, the value that I love about Dr. King, that he was uncompromising when it came to justice for all human beings on this planet.
And that's why we're celebrating him today as well. So you're talking about the speech. How do you think, Kambale, that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream, that speech that still resonates today, right, in the pursuit of social justice, how do you think that still resonates today?
The dream is continuing. There are things that have been achieved, but there are things to still be achieved. Yes, back in Dr. King's time, segregation was much more than today, where a black person could not drink water in the same fountain as a white person. That is not happening today. But we have a different form of oppression today, right? That's why I believe that his dream is continuing. His dream is almost as a testament, if I should say, right? A will for us that we have to always continuously read and check where we are. We are in 2024. Right. What is the reality of the blacks in the United States? One of the most fundamental issues is how blacks in the United States are treated by law enforcement. Now, we saw the killing that actually turned into a global movement, the killing of George Floyd. Right? Where everyone around the world was very confused about why in 2024 a black person should still fear for his life when engaging with the law enforcement. So that is why I said that the dream of Dr. King has to be a continuous check, because we have not achieved equality fully, and it has to be a continuous struggle to achieve the equality that Dr. King dreamed of.
Why is today we still celebrating we're celebrating Dr. King's Day, which is a really important day for commemorating his legacy. How can it influence current discussions on civil rights today, Kambale?
All around the world, now focus even in Africa, many people still do not have the most fundamental right. I'm thinking about the people in Western Sahara, who are still under colonization, and they're still fighting to be free today. I'm talking about many different African countries, thinking about even what's happening in Sudan today, right? That people are literally dying on a daily basis. Even in DRC, when we think about what is happening in the eastern part of Congo, people are still fighting for that. So the message of civil rights for Dr. King, I don't leave it as a message only for the United States, only for Americans. It's a global message. A global message that tells us that if we want to see something change, we must be part of that change. Dr. King didn't just make speeches. He was actually part of a movement, right? He was leading the Montgomery bus boycott movement, right? He was on the ground demanding that blacks are able to sit in the bus just as any other human being coming to the bus. So beyond his speech, he was very engaged in the society to see the civil rights be achieved. Mm-hmm. So our message today is we must be engaged for the civil rights of everyone, be it in the United States or around the world, for that to be achieved, not only through speeches, but through concrete actions where we are challenging the status quo, challenging the powers that be to give us the freedom. Freedom is not given, it's also, as Frederick Douglass said, no, you have to fight to gain it. If not, power doesn't consider anything without a demand. And our demand is all human beings must be free around the world.
Can you share concrete examples of Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King, ongoing influence on social movement and struggles for equality in today's society, in today's world? I mean, can you share some?
I'm always bringing up the George Floyd killing because it turned into a global movement. When George Floyd was killed and it was documented through video, and people in the United States and around the world saw what took place, there was a global movement to demand justice for George Floyd. People all around the world, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, were protesting, right? And this was right in the middle of COVID, right? People were in the street demanding justice. But something fascinating happened in Belgium, that while people were organizing, right, for justice for George Floyd, they were able to connect it to the history of the Congo. How so? They were saying, as we demand justice for George Floyd, it doesn't make any sense that in 2021, we still have a statue of King Leopold II, the King of Belgium, who took control of the Congo after the Berlin Conference and caused the death of over 10 to 15 million Congolese, right? That his statue was all around Belgium. So that movement connected with George Floyd, but also a movement to remove the statue of King Leopold in the years that we are living in, because it doesn't make sense. And that actually forced the King of Belgium, King Philip, to formally put out a statement. One could say it's close to an apology, where he expressed regret for what King Leopold did. But that did not happen just because people wanted to organize around the statue, right? It was connected to the mobilization for civil rights, for human rights in the United States, and that connected everyone around the world. So that's what I'm seeing, that people are connecting issues to make sense of, well, if I'm being killed here, I'm sure someone else is being killed somewhere else, and we must connect these issues together so that all of us can be free.
So all of us can be free. Now, do you, how can Martin Luther King Day celebration contribute to raising awareness about social justice? You know, you just mentioned a few things here and you mentioned about George Floyd, but how can Martin Luther King Day celebration contribute to raising awareness about social justice issues and encouraging positive actions?
The courage of Dr. Martin Luther King is what needs to be shared much more broadly. He said things that were unpopular and was uncompromising about it. And today we celebrate him for that, because whenever we do the celebration, most often we stop at the I Have a Dream speech. But we forget that a year before his death, he was so unpopular in the United States. Why? Because he stood up against an injustice, right? While the current did not see that right?
Right.
I'm speaking, of course, very broadly. Did not see that as an issue. He saw that the war in Vietnam was an issue, right? And he spoke up about it. So when we celebrate him, we should always lift that up. In today's world, that uncompromising position is so important. Many people around the world are silent when they see injustices. Why? Because they see where they are. They may lose their job, they may lose their social status, but they don't realize their silence is betrayal. And that's exactly what Dr. King said, that we cannot remain silent when faced with injustice. So today, that is what's needed for social change anywhere around the world, especially on the African continent, a very young continent where over 70% of the population is under the age of 30. Young people are seeking jobs. They can't find any. They're seeking to improve their conditions. They're not finding way out. And these young people want to transform the society. That's why we're seeing what's happening in Mali. We're seeing what's happening in Niger. We're seeing what's happening in Burkina Faso. And even in Ghana today, young people are organizing to transform the country. All of them must be uncompromising around justice.
Kambale, do you believe that Dr. King's Jr. Ideals have been fully realized today, or are there still areas where progress is needed?
His ideals are a will to me, right? It's a testament. It's not all fully realized, and it's totally up to us to continue this struggle. One thing that I appreciated from Dr. King, right, is the posture of challenging the status quo in a, I don't know if I should say in an intellectual way, right, in a logical way, and sharing the story of the people, right? So people always have compared him as if that his actions were non-violent, right? But that approach, right, was matched by the support that the people had. Today, as I'm looking at this in the United States society, some people may argue that some of his dreams have been achieved because we've had a black president. We've had, even now the Department of Defense has a black soldier there, with Secretary of State black and so on. That's not the change, in my view. That's not the change that Dr. King fought for. He didn't fight for blacks to have a social status, right? He fought for every black man. That's what he said even in his I Have a Dream speech, right? Every black boy and every black girl should be free. So no matter your status, wherever you are in the United States, you should not be afraid of the police, right? You should be able to enter any university around the United States. You should have access to job equally to any other race in the United States. Those things are still not achieved, right? So it's now up to us in 2024 to say, we know that he had a dream. We know that there have been some achievement, but not full achievement of his dream, but to continue it. And the caveat, the thing to add, is while we fight to achieve all of the dreams of Dr. King, always remember that it was tied to the liberation of all oppressed around the world, not just the United States. That we live in a global world,
right, that
we have to connect our struggle to all other oppressed around the world.
So definitely more work needs to be continued. We need to continue working harder on that. But how can we, as a society, sustain and strengthen Martin Luther King legacy to promote equality and inclusion today? A few cases that you're mentioning, George Floyd and all the other cases. How can we, as a society, sustain the strength of Martin Luther King Day to promote equality and inclusion?
We don't have a choice. The reason why I say we don't have a choice is because we live the worsening of the conditions in our societies. And I'll go global for a second, right? When we look at the challenges of some of the African countries, right? Africa has all the wealth that we can think of around the world. We have freshwater reserve, but people don't have access to water. we can feed the entire world, right? The agricultural capacity of the Congo and even the African continent can feed over 9 billion people. But people are starving. We have the mineral resources to transform the world, yet people are living in abject poverty, right? So the conditions do not even allow us to even say how, because we're living it. We must transform it. So the concrete actions now, when we know that our conditions are worsening and we have no choice but to transform it, is to be engaged in social change. Doesn't necessarily mean that one must become a president, one must become a member of parliament to transform the society. Right in your neighborhood, you can transform the society. Right? By one will say, for example, let's bring about humanitarian support. Bring the well. Yes, we will bring the well so people can have the water, but we should question why we didn't have the water in the first place and mobilize around changing the narrative. Because if we don't solve the problem of the why we did not have the water, we will assume that the humanitarian support is what's going to bring about change. The why will expose that there is a selected few who control all the wealth and all the decisions, while the vast majority are suffering. That's the challenge of the 2024 or the 21st century, that the masses must organize and mobilize so that they know the whys of why the condition is getting worse and transform it while providing, in the short term, the humanitarian support that's needed.
Very well. So since we continue celebrating this special day, in what ways can the celebration of Dr. King's Day serve as a catalyst, if I should say, for meaningful conversations about diversity and inclusion?
I will send everyone to Dr. Bernice King's posting, right? She's been posting about her father, right? About what he stood for. And she's reminding us that if Dr. King was alive today, Dr. King will not be silent around injustices taking place around the world. And I'm saying this in the context of even what's happening in Palestine at the moment, right? That we all have to see the humanity of everyone. In the Congo, where millions have died. In Sudan, where millions are suffering at the present time. In the Western Sahara, right? That today, that's what's needed. That we should not be silent around injustices. And as Dr. King said, silence is betrayal. And as silence allows for the suffering to continue. So standing up around injustice is what's necessary today to live the ideals and vision of Dr. Martin Luther King in 2024.
Thank you very much, Kambale Msavuli. Let me remind everybody again that you're an analyst from Research Center, correct? On Congo and Kinshasa. The words are just all I know is that you also done a lot as far as the Congolese, cultural Congolese voices, and as a human rights advocate as well. You've done stuff like that, and now you're based in Ghana now, right?
Yes, I'm based in Ghana. I'm learning about Kwame Nkrumah.
Oh my God, how is it going in Ghana? Well, because a lot of Ghanaians are listening to us tonight, and you based in Ghana now. I have a lot of followers in Accra. How are things going there?
Ghana is Africa's hope. If the Ghanaian youth and the Ghanaian people are able to transform and surmount the challenges that they're facing right now, it will transform the continent. Wow. Ghana has a vast history, right?
True.
With Kwame Nkrumah, the first head of state, who supported a lot of the liberation movement. But today, right, the challenge of the cost of living increasing in Ghana, the cost of electricity, but I'm still seeing the vibrant youth who are standing up, who are organizing, why they're saying, they have their Occupy movement inside of the country. But you also have social movement within Ghana, right, who are trying to transform. So with the current of what's happening in West Africa is looking into the youth of Ghana to be able to determine the next leader of Ghana, but not only that, to also transform what is happening in West Africa so that there can be a new Africa. I'm very inspired by the African youth. I'm very inspired by the Ghanaian youth. And I'm very happy that they are so hospitable that they took me into their homes and share with me the history about even the connection with that we have Congolese who came to Ghana in from 1960 to 65.
Wow.
And they were getting scholarships, right?
Wow.
And they want to study in Guinea. I didn't know this history that we have
Wow.
Congolese who came. So I'm very happy with what they are sharing with me there, and I'm hopeful that the Ghanaian people will be able to transform the country.
Well, I'm hoping that I'll come to see you there. That's what I can hope.
Yes, you are welcome. Akwaba, as they say.
Thank you, Kambale. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on the RM Show. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So